Hi guys. In this video, I'm going to explain and show you with a couple of examples how you can find optional courses for your studies. So when you're studying in our degree program, you have some of the courses in a form that is called optional studies. So those are freely selectable studies. And if you're in our sales program, or let's say, if you're a Finnish student whose mother language is Finnish, then you're going to have 25 credits of optional studies. And if you are a non-Finnish speaking student, so if your mother tongue is not Finnish, then you have to select 20 ECTS credits worth of optional studies. And there are a couple of ways or let's say a couple of possibilities of how you are selecting optional studies. Optional studies, first of all, have to, or should, they are scheduled to be completed during your first study year. So our study program is designed in a way that it is calculated that all optional studies are completed during your first study year. So make sure that you really complete the 20 or 25 ECTS during the first study year. And another thing that's important to notice is that you need yourself to decide and plan what optional studies you're going to take. And some options, so there are some ways of how it's really easy to find and select optional studies, but then there are also, there are a lot of different possibilities. And how you should schedule it is that in the autumn semester, so during period 1 and 2, you should schedule 10 to 15 ECTS credits of optional studies, and then in the spring semester, so period 3 and 4, another 10 to 15 ECTS of optional studies, depending on how many you already completed during the autumn term. And right now, before you're starting your studies, you can practically only select optional studies or look for optional studies for period 1 and 2, because the teaching schedules for period 3 and 4 are not yet available for many of the courses. But it's enough if you know, if you choose now optional courses, a couple of optional courses you could take in period 1 and a couple of optional courses that you can take in period 2, so during November, December. And so I'll go now through the most common options for completing optional studies, which are also described in the PDF that you were sent with your welcome letter. And so the first, and well, let's share my screen, and it's easier to explain that and show that. So the first way, or the most easy way to find optional studies, well, there are several places. So first of all, you use again the Peppi study guide. That's where you find information about all the courses offered at the University of Oulu. And there are some places where you can find optional studies. First of all, you can find optional studies within our own SAYS program. So such courses that are not mandatory for you can be taken as optional studies. I show that in a moment. There is a tab called Minor Subjects and Other Modules. That's also a place where you can find optional studies, and I'll show you also that a little bit. And then there is something called Open University, where there is also a number of courses that you can take as optional studies and include those then in your degree. Courses for exchange students, those are not courses kind of where you would be automatically allowed to take those courses, because they have a certain contingent number of places reserved for exchange students in the University of Oulu. But let's start with the easiest option. So if you really don't find or know anything else, then take our own courses. First of all, you again go to Faculty of Information Technology and Electrical Engineering after selecting master's programs 2 years. And there you select our own study program, so software engineering and information systems. And how this works is, as you have to complete, in order to be able to kind of graduate in our program, you have to either take all courses of the software engineering orientation or all courses of the information systems orientation. Let's assume that you want to specialize, or you want your orientation to be software engineering. It means you're going to take all the courses that are listed under software engineering orientation. That means that the courses in the information systems orientation are not mandatory for you. And that means that you can take any of the courses from the other orientation that you are not studying and use those as optional courses. So if you're studying software engineering, or if your orientation is software engineering and you want to take courses from the information systems orientation, then you can see, okay, for the first period, so study period 1, in our degree program, the study periods are now already correctly marked. Unfortunately, at the point when I'm now recording this video, that's not the case for other study programs. But for our program, you can find it here. And at some point in time, hopefully also for the other programs. But you can see that now you can take digitalization and innovation from the information systems orientation during period 1, and then have already a 5 ECTS credit for optional studies. That would be then counted as part of optional studies. Servitization, co-creation, and business development in period 2, user experience, design, and management in period 3. So this is one way to take. For example, if you take the first 2 courses from both orientation, so if you take in period 1, software development, maintenance, and operations, and digitalization and innovation, and in period 2, professional software engineering processes and human factors, and servitization, co-creation, and business development, it means you would already have those 2, at least for non-Finnish speaking students, the 2 optional courses of 5 ECTS each completed during your first autumn semester. Another option then, for example, for the spring semester, a good way to get optional studies from our own degree program is by choosing additional specialization studies. In order to graduate from us, you need to complete one of those 3 specializations in full: software engineering, or human-centered design and user experience, or persuasive design and gamification specialization. But then you can take the other courses from another specialization than the one that you want yourself to have in your degree as optional studies. If you would, for example, take 2 of the orientations in full, then it would mean that you would kind of, let's say you take software engineering specialization and human-centered design and user experience specialization, and both of the courses of the specialization in full, then you will have listed in your degree actually 2 specializations, but it will reduce the amount of optional studies that you're then still expected to take. So you can say that the additional specialization or individual courses from other specializations than the one you want to take in full are counted as optional studies practically. So that's a very easy way to take. And that's another benefit, is that if you are still insecure whether you want to take the software engineering or the information systems orientation, take the first courses from both orientations, because then you can still decide, for example, after the first autumn term, after the first autumn semester, which orientation you actually will continue and want to complete in full. Another way to find optional studies is via open university studies. So there are some courses that are offered to students or to persons outside the University of Oulu. But if you are studying, if you're a student in our degree program, you can take courses from Open University for free. Usually they are expensive, so you have to pay for participating in those courses. But as one of our students, you can participate in those courses, as far as I know, for free, but only if the course has been accepted by the tutor teacher in your personal study plan beforehand. So you will have to kind of deliver a confirmation that this course is going to be part of your degree and that therefore you are eligible to take those courses for free. And there are usually, for open university studies, it seems that it shows, hopefully correctly, which courses are offered in English. There are not many courses as it seems. Let's see. Or it might also be that also that information is not updated, but there are some courses like Introduction to Starting a Company in Finland or Communication Channels in Marketing via Open University, but they don't have that many credits. Also an important thing to check, how many ECTS does a course have, and ensure that you get all the required credits. Internationalization is offered in English, has 5 credits. Introduction to Micro-Entrepreneurship in Finland is in English and open via Open University, and then you can check what is the schedule of those courses. So in autumn, it's during the first and second period, so it's going on over 2 periods, which means it's approximately 2.5 credits of like studying for each period. So Open University is another way to find courses. Then yet another way to find or to get optional studies into your degree is by using studies that you have completed at another university. So that you have completed earlier, either at another university or at the University of Oulu. Can be another Finnish university or University of Applied Sciences, also from abroad universities. And then what you need to do is you need to make application for recognition of learning. And that means you want to apply to having already completed studies included into your degree, usually as optional studies. In very few cases, you can kind of replace a mandatory course with a course that you already have completed, but that's quite rare. So usually if you apply for having an already completed course included, but you cannot include any courses in our degree that were part of the degree with which you applied for studying with us. So if you have applied to studying with us with a bachelor degree from some foreign university or Finnish university, then you cannot use any of the courses that you have included in this bachelor degree as a optional course in our degree. And then another way to find optional studies, if none of those, or let's say, if you don't want to use other courses from our SACE program, then there is something called minor subjects and other modules. And when you go there, these minor subjects and other modules, it means that those are in general free to select for students from the University of Oulu, but some of the minors have participation restrictions. So not all of the minors are open, for example, to you to study. And I will take now only 2 examples of where you can or how you can look for those studies. The first example I'm going to take is Oulu Business School. minor subjects. So if you go to Oulu Business School minor subjects, then first of all, you get information. And in this information, it says that there are 3 minor studies that are aimed at degree students in the University of Oulu. So although they have a longer list and a larger amount of minority subjects, only entrepreneurship and business design minor studies, basic business studies, and digital retailing are open for you to study. And now if we go to the list of minor subjects, and now here the it's just at this moment, this information is not yet updated in Peppi when I'm making this video, but when you show timing as periods, it doesn't give you that information yet, which means you just have to go to the course description and check there for timing of the course. But going back, so there were three minor subjects that would be open for you to study. Let's look for entrepreneurship and business design. I think that's let's see, was that a good idea? Yeah. Entrepreneurship and business design. So here in this red bar, the layout changed a bit from last year. So here in the red box, you can see what is the minor and then what kind of courses belong to it. So economics and business administration is one of the minors that is not open to you, except if you actually participate via Open University. So actually those courses would be open to you, but apparently they are not offered in English. So for those who don't speak Finnish, those are not an option, but for Finnish students, they are. Via Open University, but not otherwise. Business law basic studies was not open for all. Business law intermediate studies was not open, but minor in entrepreneurship and business design was open for all. And there are different courses that you're able or allowed to take that apparently are all offered in English. Entrepreneurship, for example, entrepreneurship for sustainability, which would be held from end of October to end of December or end of November. So during period 3, 5 ECTS credit course, and here you can see information as earlier about the course. Target group, all university students. So that means open for all. And it is completed, I think, learning takes place mostly in groups by means of intensive lectures and workshops, visitor presentations and discussions, and so on. So that's now important for you to consider, because you will have your mandatory courses from our degree program. And now you would have to check that these are not overlapping with the teaching times in the optional courses that you're taking if participation in those teaching events is mandatory. So when you now select optional studies, you really have to go, you mark down in a calendar all your mandatory course schedules, teaching times, and then you can check whether an optional course is actually an option for you or whether teaching events are overlapping. In which case, it's probably not a good idea to take both of those courses, and you need to find something else. Another example would be, that might be interesting now from our SACE program perspective under this, where was it? Basic business studies, no. Minor in entrepreneurship and business design. There is a course called Entrepreneurship and Emerging Technologies, which is held during the first and second period, where they will use, so in this course, for example, upon completion of the course, the students are able to apply the core competencies in their studies in a real-life blockchain-related business context. So that's also something that might be interesting for some of you. Let's take a little bit different example. So this is maybe these Oulu Business School studies are maybe more interesting for students who are interested in information systems orientation, but of course equally important and equally interesting for software engineering students. But let's now look at something that is maybe a little bit more software engineering related. So let's again go to minor subjects and other modules. And now let's have a look at what minor subjects does our own faculty offer. So Faculty of Information Technology and Electrical Engineering. When I click here, in contrast to Oulu Business School, where when I click here, there comes information about restrictions of that not all minors are open to all students. Under Faculty of IT EE, it doesn't say anything like that. And that means in principle, all those courses are open to all students. So if we click here, once again, we see what are the different minor subjects. There are electronics and communications engineering, applied and computational mathematics, longer program of applied and computational mathematics, computer science and engineering, which is what our students often have taken courses from there, information processing science, which are our own bachelor studies. But this is now a little bit tricky because even though it says for almost all courses that they are offered in English, they are not offered in English to all students, but in principle only to students of our English language bachelor program, which is called DICE program. So if I go to, for example, Introduction to Software Engineering, this group or this program, degree program in digitalization, computing and electronics, it's DICE called. So it's part of this program. That's why it's offered in English, but it is not open to all students in English, which means that you can now not completely trust if it says for a course it's available in English, that you would actually be able or allowed to complete it in English. And that means you will need to contact the responsible teacher of the course to make sure, first of all, whether the course is taught in English, and second of all, whether you are allowed to participate in the course. But so let's see. So there is computer science and engineering, information processing science, minority studies, where there are different kinds of programming modules, for example. There is a minor studies in biomedical engineering and in sustainable development, but that is for the whole university the same. But let's take example from computer science and engineering. So there is, for example, a course called Introduction to Artificial Intelligence, which is something that you might be interested in, which is held in period 4, so mid of March until beginning of May. So that's something you could already keep in mind if you're interested in artificial intelligence. Let's see, then there was a course, I think, elementary programming, which is held during actually, one implementation is held from 21st of August to 31st of December. So during periods 1 and 2, let's see, registration is possible until 28th. First teaching event exercises is on the 11th of September. If you check out the schedule, lectures, first lecture is Thursday, 7th of September. And again, you would have to check when do your mandatory courses have teaching, which exercise groups you enroll to in your mandatory studies, and then check that optional courses that you select are not overlapping with the other mandatory teaching that you have to complete. And completing mandatory courses from our program should always have higher priority because those courses are held only once a year. If you miss a course, it might be that your graduation is delayed. With optional studies, you have much more flexibility. There is also the possibility during summer to take some courses usually, which means that it's even possible to complete some optional studies during summer, but there is usually, for almost all courses, there is no, almost all of our mandatory courses are so that there is no possibility to complete them during summer. And so that's why, first of all, make sure you're able to participate in the mandatory courses and then select optional courses based on making sure that you also complete first or that you are able to complete the mandatory courses. Well, so let's say there are a lot of ways to find optional studies. Easiest option with the least effort is taking other courses from our SACE program that are not mandatory to you now specifically. Open university courses, and then checking out minor subjects. But for all other courses, then our own SACE courses, you practically always should contact then the responsible teacher beforehand and ensure that is the course really held in English, because you cannot trust, unfortunately, on Peppi information in all cases. And the second thing you have to check is whether you, as a master student in the SACE program, are allowed to participate in the course. Okay, so I hope this gives you now a good enough basis to find potential optional courses that you're interested in. Spend some time browsing courses, finding out information, looking at schedules, and so on. And hopefully this will kind of help you to be able to progress and, let's say, be able to start your studies without the danger to miss starting also with the optional studies right away from the very first day of when the studies start very soon in a couple of weeks. Yeah, let's see. I'll stop sharing and then I'll say until we meet in person. Bye-bye.